The Haunted Flight 401, the ghosts that may have saved lives. Welcome to Mystery Stories. 365. Imagine you're 30,000 feet in the air on what should be an ordinary flight. A flight attendant suddenly stops in the middle of the aisle. She's staring at an empty seat. She quietly tells another crew member, "There's a captain sitting there." The other crew member looks, but sees nothing. A few minutes later, an eerie voice is heard near the aircraft's galley. "Be careful. This plane could catch fire." Passengers look around in confusion. Crew members are visibly shaken. The chilling part, the captain some people claim to see had died months earlier in one of America's deadliest air disasters. Over the following months, pilots, flight attendants, mechanics, and passengers reported seeing the same two men aboard different aircraft. Some dismissed the stories as imagination. Others insisted they had witnessed something impossible. The crash itself is a matter of historical record. But what happened afterward remains one of aviation's greatest paranormal mysteries. This is the story of Eastern Airlines Flight 401. It was the evening of December 29th, 1972, Eastern Airlines Flight 401 departed New York's JFK Airport on a routine flight to Miami, Florida. The aircraft was one of the world's newest wide-body airliners, the Lockheed L-1011 TriStar. On board were 176 people, 163 passengers, and 13 crew members. At the controls sat Captain Robert Bob Loft, First Officer Albert Stockstill, and Flight Engineer Donald Don. Repo, all experienced professionals with thousands of hours in the cockpit. The flight was uneventful. Passengers relaxed. Cabin crew served refreshments, nothing suggested that this routine journey would soon become a tragedy remembered for decades. As the aircraft approached Miami, the crew lowered the landing gear. Two green indicator lights illuminated. The third one, the nose landing gear indicator, remained dark. The pilots didn't know whether the landing gear had failed or whether the tiny indicator bulb had simply burned out. To be safe, air traffic control instructed Flight 401 to enter a holding pattern over the dark Florida Everglades while the crew investigated. Captain Loft engaged the autopilot. Everyone focused on solving what appeared to be a minor technical problem. Then something almost unbelievable happened. During the troubleshooting process, slight pressure was accidentally applied to the control column. It was enough to disconnect part of the autopilot system. The aircraft began descending, slowly, silently. No alarm sounded immediately. Outside, there were no city lights, only endless darkness stretching across the Everglades. Inside the cockpit, every eye remained fixed on the faulty indicator light. No one noticed that the aircraft was steadily losing altitude. By the time the crew realized what was happening, there wasn't enough time. At approximately 200 miles per hour, Flight 401 slammed into the Everglades. The impact tore the aircraft apart. 101 people lost their lives. Among them were Captain Bob Loft and Flight Engineer Don Repo. Only 75 people survived. Investigators later concluded that the crash wasn't caused by engine failure or severe weather. It was the result of a tiny burned-out light bulb, combined with a fatal moment of distraction. It remains one of the most tragic examples of how a small problem can lead to catastrophic consequences. The story could have ended there, but according to countless reports, it was only beginning. Following the accident, Eastern Airlines recovered many undamaged components from the wreckage. Galley, equipment, electronic modules, seats, cockpit, instruments. These parts were refurbished and installed in other Lockheed L-1011 aircraft throughout the airline's fleet. No one expected anything unusual. Then strange reports started arriving. At first, they seemed isolated. One crew member mentioned seeing an unfamiliar captain standing near the galley. Another reported speaking with a flight engineer who suddenly disappeared. Passengers complained about feeling an overwhelming cold around certain seats. Most people laughed the stories off until the reports kept coming. Different aircraft, different crews, different passengers. Yet the descriptions were remarkably similar. Many witnesses claimed the mysterious figures resembled Captain Bob Loft and Flight Engineer Don Repo. One incident became particularly famous. A flight attendant was serving passengers when she noticed a uniformed captain quietly sitting in an otherwise ordinary passenger seat, thinking he was deadheading on the flight. She smiled politely before continuing toward the cockpit. Inside, both assigned pilots were already at their stations. Confused, she returned to the cabin. The seat was empty. She asked the passenger beside it where the captain had gone. The passenger looked puzzled. What captain? The flight attendant insisted someone had been sitting there only moments earlier. The passenger replied, "You've been talking to an empty seat the whole time." Another story proved even more unsettling. Flight attendant Faye Merriweather was preparing meals in the galley when she noticed something unusual reflected in the polished metal of an oven door. Man's face. At first she thought someone was standing behind her. She turned. No one. She looked back. The reflection was still there. According to her account, the face slowly spoke. "Be careful. This plane could catch fire." Terrified, she immediately called the flight engineer. When he looked toward the reflection, he reportedly froze. He believed he recognized the man. It looked exactly like Don Repo. Whether everyone present actually saw the same thing has been debated for decades, but the incident became one of the most famous stories associated with Flight 401. The captain chose to have the aircraft inspected as a precaution. Technicians found no obvious problem. The aircraft was cleared for service. Later, during another flight, one engine reportedly developed a serious malfunction. The crew managed the emergency safely, and no fire occurred. Supporters of the haunting believe Repo's warning helped prevent another disaster. Skeptics argue it was simply coincidence. No definitive proof has ever settled the debate. As the story spread, rumors circulated throughout Eastern Airlines. Some pilots reportedly refused to fly aircraft containing salvaged Flight 401 components. Flight attendants whispered about ghostly figures appearing in the galley. Mechanics claimed they had seen mysterious men inspecting equipment before disappearing without a trace. Whether every story was true is impossible to know, but the rumors became so widespread that they refused to die. According to multiple accounts, Eastern Airlines eventually removed salvaged Flight 401 components from service. The airline publicly denied many of the paranormal claims, and no official evidence has ever confirmed that the aircraft were haunted. Even so, the legend continued to grow. Books were written. Television documentaries explored the mystery. Former employees shared stories for years after the airline itself disappeared. More than 50 years later, Flight 401 remains unique. The crash itself is fully documented. The investigation is complete. The victims are remembered, but the stories that followed continue to divide opinion. Were frightened witnesses influenced by grief and rumor? Did coincidence evolve into one of aviation's greatest legends? Or did Captain Bob Loft and Don Repo somehow remain connected to the aircraft that carried parts from the wreckage, returning one last time to protect future passengers? No one can answer that question with certainty. Perhaps that's why the mystery refuses to disappear. The next time you board a late-night flight and notice an unexplained chill, or catch what looks like someone standing in a reflection, you might remember the legend of Flight 401, and you may wonder, was someone really there? Or was it simply your imagination? If you enjoyed this true mystery, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for Mystery Stories 365. Because sometimes, the strangest stories are the ones that really happened.